Are you thinking about moving to Oregon and the Corvallis area is high on your list? Well, we've moved over 400 families in the Mid-Willamette Valley, and we can help you too. We reached out to our clients and friends and said, hey, if you're willing to go on camera and tell your Oregon story, we'll honor your time by donating to a local nonprofit, Jackson Street Youth Services. About 15 of our friends responded enthusiastically. So let's hear what these people have to say about their move here and their life in the area. We'll do our best to show you places on the screen when they're mentioned, and there'll be links in the description below.
All right. Hey folks, thank you for checking out our channel. I'm Michael Kreslowski with Team K Realty out of Remax in Corvallis. And today we're joined by Owen Roth. Thank you so much. How are you doing today? I knock over the props. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Good. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Yeah. It's really fun to get to have you here because normally you're the one doing the interview, right? This is Owen Roth of the Bossless Path podcast, and I got to be one of his guests way back when. So thank you for being a part of this project where we talk about our life in Oregon.
Yeah, return the favor.
Awesome. Let's dive right in. So everyone's got a unique story to tell, and my hope in this project is that the people who are watching or listening to this will be able to see themselves in your story, because the intended audience, of course, are people who aren't here yet and are thinking about moving to the area.
Right.
So could you start it off by telling us a little bit about when you moved here and where you moved here from?
Sure. So I've been here 9.5 years, 8.5 years. I should know this because you gave me the questions, but
yeah, 9-ish.
2016, summer of 2016, however that math pans out. And I moved here from the place I was born, Chico, California.
Okay.
Though when I was moving here from Chico, I had actually moved back there for what I was calling a layover. I was done with college, going to live there for a month with my folks.
Sure.
While I figured out my bearings, and I wanted to move somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Didn't know where, didn't have a job lined up or school or anything like that. So I thought I would stay with my parents back in my hometown for a month tops, figure that out, and then move. And then that turned into 2 years.
Sounds like a viable version of that story. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not too much of a surprise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up scouting out Oregon in that 2-year period back in Chico. I met someone, started dating, got serious, and then we decided we wanted to move up somewhere north together. And that's when I moved up here, was with her at the time.
Gotcha. So how would you compare Corvallis to Chico? Because these are two really interesting communities that, if I recall correctly, are both like college communities, right? University
That's
towns?
right, yep. Okay. Small college towns in an agricultural valley.
Okay,
yeah,
so
a lot of similarities.
On paper, there are a lot of similarities.
Outside of the rain and the hot summers in Chico, yeah. You trade the hot, dry summers in Chico for long, gray winters here in Corvallis, and
sure.
All the other things are fairly similar. Chico's a little bit bigger, but very similar.
Okay,
yeah.
So our population here is something like 60,000, including the students,
right?
Give or take.
Yeah, and Chico's probably about double that. When there was the Paradise fires 5 years ago, a lot of people went from Paradise because there's massive structural damage to all of Paradise, and they moved into Chico. So it's about twice as big. But I don't think I answered your question of how I find them different or similar.
Both are applicable. This is as just a conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think this would bleed into one of your other future questions here. Is Corvallis was super attractive to me because a lot of the qualities of Chico and growing up there were positive things for me. I really like the small town community with that kind of core university draw, everything that comes with being a university town, and the way it affects the businesses downtown and the general vibe of the place with that like youth and energy and ideas, and just having something central that draws people. And I really enjoyed that, and it was a great place in my opinion to grow up, and it had a really strong sense of community. I have friends who I still have now who I grew up with, some ironically who live here.
So you weren't the only Chico to Corvallis?
No,
okay.
Certainly not. I have some good friends who's from family friends. Our families are friends, and I'm friends with her, and she lives here with her husband and a son now. And then I have other really close friends that live up in Portland and Bend. And there's a lot of immigration up north as we seek different climates.
Yeah, and Owen, you're not one of our clients' friends that moved here specifically for, oh my gosh, the Paradise Fire, I gotta get away from that. But a good friend of mine who works in, the social sciences, literally said, Michael, you realize that a lot of the people you work with are climate refugees, and I had never heard that phrase before. And that's not the nature of us knowing each other in the first place. You were already here when we met.
I was, yeah.
But it is an interesting phenomenon that does occur.
Yeah, even more so all the time now. As we're speaking, the LA fires, that's just happened.
They're still happening, right? Yeah, it's scary what's going on down there. So we, of course, have to be aware of things like that and be, I think, a Firewise community and talk about defensible space. But this is, as you've heard me talk about before, a place that people have been evacuated to, not from. Yeah. Okay, so what are some of the things in the 9 years that you've been here that you just especially love about this? You said the sense of community, the university component, and the kind of vibe in that regard. What are some of your other just favorite attributes of Corvallis and the Mid-Valley? Because it's obviously not just about Corvallis. We help people move all over the area, and there's a lot of appeal to just being as part of the area too.
Yeah, for me, it's just a great fit in almost all of the areas things you look for in an area. Like, I really like the small community. Like, I run in the longer I live here, the more people I get to know on various levels of this. But I'll go out and I'll just almost always see lots of people that I know, from close friends to acquaintances, and I really like that. I like being like integrated and feeling like I'm not just walking through a crowd of people.
So it's got a small town feel in that regard as opposed to a completely anonymous big city?
Yep.
Like, big contrast there?
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, that's great. I know ironically, I know someone who I used to work with who lived here when I met her, but her and her husband moved down to Eugene because they wanted to get away from being like running into people they knew so much. Sure. And Eugene's not that much bigger, but yeah, I thought it was funny. Everyone's got their preferences, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Paradise is subjective, as we like to say. And I would agree with you, which shouldn't be a surprise if we both enjoy living here, right? I feel like we've got a community that does have that small town feel, but not in an incestuous way, like a really small town where everyone's actually up in each other's business all the time.
Yep.
There's privacy, but it's not totally anonymous. You do feel part of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
That's a better word probably than incestuous. Yeah. But
incestuous is more clickbaity.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Might not be what you're going for.
That will not be on the thumbnail. Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. And then I just really love that Corvallis and really the Willamette Valley, it's just got so much to offer. Like, the coast is very close.
Sure.
An hour for us here in Corvallis. The Cascades, basically an hour the other direction. Portland is like an hour and a half from Corvallis, which if you need access to the airport or big city things, that's there. And then the valley itself is just full most of the time of the year. Pick and choose from what you like. Personally, I don't mind the gray that we have right now as we're recording this in January. Some people don't like it, but yeah, I still think it's beautiful here.
So I appreciate that you say that, or I should say I like that you say that. Again, your paradise and your preferences are totally subjective, right?
Sure.
So it's the sort of thing where if you like the same things that I like, you'll love living here. But I really like the overcast, I like the gray as well. I moved here from Florida. I don't like stepping outside and feeling like I'm getting skin cancer immediately. I'm very pale, and so this works really well.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's dive in a little bit more into some of those things that you enjoy exploring, because you mentioned a bunch of great things, right? You like going to the coast, Portland, Cascades. Or let's maybe put this a different way. What are some of the things that you'd recommend that other people check out in those areas too, if they were going to come here for a visit, see the Mid-Valley, and then play tourist somewhere else? Because that's usually what happens.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've never visited before, I would definitely make yourself aware of what the options are, and then make sure to just go hit those places up and visit them. And
so what are some of your favorite things when you go to the coast, for example?
Sure, yeah. I guess I didn't have a full answer there.
Because my signature move is asking 3 questions at once. I'm not as skilled an interviewer as you are.
Yeah, personally, I like stuff, a lot of the stuff in town, really. I like the ability that I can go to the coast and to the Cascades and all that. I like a lot of outdoor stuff, biking, hiking, snowboarding in the winter, kayaking, all that. But what I really enjoy about Corvallis, and this kind of gets away from your question, but I feel it's still important. One of the reasons why I chose to live in Corvallis specifically and bought a piece of land with your help.
That's right, yeah.
Here specifically versus somewhere else in the valley is because I really enjoy Corvallis and the community and everything it has to offer here, like I was touching on before. And I really like that you don't have to go very far to just, for me personally, I don't have to go very far to get a lot of it, visit all the things that I like. We have an amazing park here. I guess it's a park, the McDunn Forest, which is managed by OSU and has some private land mixed in, research forest, and there's just like great trails there. So I love being able to go out at the end of the day, work day, and just drive out there. I can throw my mountain bike on the back of my car, I can get to the trailhead in 10 minutes, go for a ride for an hour, get back at dark, and a lot of people can't do that in places they live. It might be a 20-minute drive, it might be an hour drive. It becomes more like a huge activity, whereas for me, I can just go. It's very accessible.
You really do have almost instant access to that kind of stuff where you could do it on any given Wednesday. It doesn't have to be a Saturday event.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, traffic here is pretty much non-existent.
Traffic.
Yeah. It's a subjective term, but you can get anywhere in town very quickly and easily, and it's very bike friendly. And I'm a huge biker.
I was going to ask, you do bike commute, right? I know this.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your experience in that regard.
Yeah, these days I'm self-employed and I do photography and video production, so there's a lot of equipment, so I don't usually bike commute for work anymore because I have to haul a lot of gear. But back when I didn't do that and I held a job, I would almost never drive. I don't think I ever really drove to work because I would just bike, and I lived on various rentals around town. I even lived in Philomath, a neighboring town here, for a year, and even then I could bike into Corvallis in 20 minutes. And the infrastructure here in town is amazing for bikes. I would say downtown, could do a little bit better as far as bike lanes and stuff, but outside of downtown, it's very easy to get around town, very bike friendly.
There are definitely some busy spots in downtown, and you probably know this. I think anyone who's like a diehard subscriber of my channel knows this. I moved here specifically because of Corvallis's bike friendly ranking.
I remember that.
I still have now framed in my home office the magazine with the cover story about that.
Oh, cool.
And I do remember actually before I did my recon trip here, calling the Chamber of Commerce and asking them about bike infrastructure and stuff, and they said, pretty much just don't bike like right downtown on 3rd or 4th Street. It's basically Highway 99 unzipped like a zipper. They're like, aside from that, like you go 100 feet in either direction, you can have a pretty relaxed bike commute.
Yeah.
And that's what you're speaking to there.
It's very
there's definitely a few spots that are really busy downtown, but the infrastructure and the ability to have that kind of lifestyle is very conducive to it.
Oh yeah, it's great. And I have a car. I drove here actually today because I have to go somewhere really quick afterwards. But I bike and walk a lot of places. Like usually when I come to the office, like when we've signed paperwork before, I walk here, and it's like a 10-minute walk, and that's by choice, not by necessity.
I was going to say, as you said that you drove here today, in my mind I'm thinking, and he probably begrudged the fact that he had to actually get in the car to do it, as opposed to just bike or take a scooter or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you for making that happen, especially if you have another job right after. What are some things that you enjoy doing when you do leave the Mid-Valley and you play tourist, for example, on the coast or in the Cascades? Where are some of the hot spots for go to the coast, do this, or here's where you like to go the other direction when you do snowboarding or skiing?
Sure. So on the coast, my girlfriend loves the coast, and so we go there in the summer months, in shoulder months, spring and fall as well, pretty often. And it's really nice because from here in town, it's an hour out, so we can go and almost on a whim can wake up on a Saturday and let's go to the coast for
Absolutely.
a few hours, and we just drive out there. Usually we just hike on the beach, and then like most of the coast from Newport up and down for many miles, you can just always find spots there's a lot of free spots to park and some that are paid, but it's just very easy access, and you can just walk on the beach for as far as your eye can see. Yeah. And it's beautiful, and there's not that many people there for how nice it is, and it's just very accessible to just run out there. Even if you just go out for an hour and a half on the beach and then jump the car, come home, it's not difficult at all.
I really appreciate how you said that, because you can really just go on a whim. And I think that's a very common part of our Mid-Valley lifestyle. It's a weekend, I want to go get clam chowder. Boom, you just go.
Yeah.
Or go for a walk on the beach. It is very accessible.
Absolutely. And then going the other direction, going into the Cascades for hiking, and this time of year, snowboarding. That's if you're in the winter, the right equipment, snow tires, probably a good idea. As long as you pay attention to the weather, not to scare anyone. People from Montana would probably laugh at me for saying that.
But when you're going over the pass into the Cascades, you do have to be ready for that. The valley floor here, it just looks occasionally drizzly on and off. We don't think of it as being snowy or icy on most days. So that's an important thing to mention.
Yep. Just something to look into, a little bit of due diligence before a trip. That one is less so than a trip to the coast, where you can just any time of year, at any time, go. Into the Cascades in the winter, just look at a report. That's all you really need to do. In the summer, you can go anytime.
Do you know if there are still any buses that leave from places like Peak Sports to take you snowboarding? I feel like there used to be that, but I'm not a winter sports person.
Good question. I don't know if there are right now. I assume there are. There were last season. I've never done one, but I know, yes, from Peak, I believe, like you said, and
Okay, so probably.
Yeah.
We'll Google it, we'll put something on the
Look
screen.
into it. But I think there is something, for those who don't have a car.
I'm not assuming that you habitually watch my YouTube videos as someone who lives here and has for 9 years, but we actually just posted a video about Timberline Lodge. I took my parents there on a trip deliberately before the main skiing and snowboarding season, and I was just like, wow, this place is incredible, and if I was a skier snowboarder, I would really want to come back to do that. Instead, my wife and I were like, we should come back for a riding retreat or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that a place you've ever gone to do snow sports on Mount Hood?
On Mount Hood, yes. There's 3 resorts. 3 resorts, I believe. Timberline, Hood Meadows, and I can't remember the budget one.
I didn't even realize that. That's not the only one on Mount Hood. Gotcha.
No, Timberline that's the highest one. So you can actually, I believe you can ski there all year round. It's high enough that they always have snow. I've been to Hood Meadows when I moved here. I have a good buddy in Portland who I grew up with in Chico, who lives in Portland with his family. But yeah, we went to Hood Meadow to snowboard those first few years that I lived here. And it's beautiful up there. I've also done a backpacking trip, a 4-night trip around Mount Hood in the summer, which was amazing. Yeah, you definitely get, to be honest, the impact of if you're doing summer hiking in the Cascades, especially in really popular areas like Hood that are much closer to Portland, it can get quite congested, and there's actually a permitting system now for a lot of hikes, not only overnight hikes, backpacking, but also day hikes. That was introduced, I believe, last year. Just something to be aware of. It's by no means me trying to turn anyone off of doing it, but
It's just good to know.
It's good to know, that you no longer, for a lot of hikes in the Cascades, in the core warm months, you no longer can just go out and hike them. You need to get a permit. Just something for some people to be aware of.
Have you ever thought about doing the relatively recently opened Corvallis to Coast Trail? My understanding is that there's a mix of some bike paths while you're still right here in town and in Philomath, gravel roads, bike lanes, stuff like that, and you can get a pass to go spend the night, camp on the way, do that sort of thing, and then maybe even take like the BAT bus, Benton Area Transit, or something like that back?
Yeah, I don't know the name of the bus, but there is a bus that goes there and back. And
Have you thought about that?
I've done it.
You've done it?
I've done it 3 times.
Do I know that and I'm just completely forgetting it?
I don't think I've ever told you.
It didn't come up while we were buying a house. Okay, what'd you do yesterday? Oh, I did the Corvallis Coast Trail. Okay.
I don't think so, yeah.
That's awesome. What was that like? Did you hike it or bike it or?
Bike it.
Okay.
Yeah, hiking would be pretty heavy. I actually think you can do the hike, but a bike you can just do it in a day. So a lot of people break it into 2 days.
Nice.
But yeah, it was great. There's a reason I've done it 3 times. I try and do it every year, but usually it's pairing up with trying to get other people to do it with me because it's more enjoyable to do with multiple people. And last year I wasn't able to twist anyone's arm. Yeah, this year hopefully.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's a beautiful ride or hike, however you do it. And like you were saying, there's a mixture of paved roads, single track trail, gravel fire roads, and even like a small, it's like a double wide paved path for a portion of it, which is surreal. 10 feet wide. I don't think cars can go on it, and it's just for the sea to see. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's pretty magical.
Oh, love it. I think another one of our friends, Colin, had done that way back when. I don't think we ever talked about it on a YouTube video, though. So that's really neat. Okay, super.
Yeah, highly recommended. Yeah.
All right.
And for that, I'll also throw a resource. If you go to, I think, c2c.org, I would just Google C2C, as in C, the letter C, to the numeral CSEA, the word. Just Google that, and there's a website out there that has all the maps, because there are different routes you can take.
We'll make sure that's on the screen as you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't help but think that I'm going to be the one editing this particular video, and it's going to probably be very much what we would call YouTube level editing. So I hope it's at least good enough that you're not like, oh man, I can't believe my face is attached to your like quick cuts on YouTube and all that stuff. I'll let you professionally edit it if you really want. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go with it. But
I got enough of my own editing projects to take care of. I trust you.
Nice. Okay. What was it like house hunting with us? Do you mind telling the story?
Working with you and your team, I don't really have anything to compare it to because I've never bought anything else before. And I found you guys via a recommendation of a friend who's a client of yours. And it was a strong recommendation. And I talked to this person and he told me like all about you, and it sounded great, so that's when I reached out to you. And for a little bit in depth for those listening, my relationship, I think I reached out to you pre-pandemic and started to look at houses and look around. And then the pandemic happened, and house buying was not an option for me. So it got put off until basically this last year, 2024. So there's a good 5-6 year hiatus in between. And I only bring that part up because I think it's a great illustration of like how you don't have that pressure. I never felt pressure from you or your team to, okay, you should put in an offer, or you should be really thinking about this, or any sort of like arm twisting or manipulation.
Good.
Yeah, I honestly felt like you had my best interests at heart, and you were very good about checking in with, how do I feel about a place? What are my thoughts? We had many discussions over phone and in person about what I'm looking for, what's on the market now, and all that. And I just never felt rushed, and I always felt supported. I feel like that's exactly the qualities you need, on top of all the other things that you bring to the table as far as your awareness of the market and your negotiation skills and all that. And it's just, I couldn't have really asked for a better experience in terms of all that stuff.
That's a pretty good plug. Thank you. Wow. Who put these apples here? What's up with this? Why do we even need fake apples? It's just for feng shui. But would you mind telling us a little bit about the section of town that you decided, and what your field was in that regard? Because we don't want to talk about, here's the address, we want to respect your internet privacy. Mm-hmm. But it's usually helpful for people to hear what you like about the area that you chose.
Absolutely. So I'm near the golf course, the Country Club golf course. So I guess that would be south. I don't know the labels of the different part of town.
We just call it Southwest Corvallis.
Yeah, Southwest Corvallis. Yeah, and I like that area because it's really, you can't go wrong in a lot of areas in my mind in Corvallis. But for me, it's still close to both the university and downtown, and the neighborhood's quite nice. So the bikeability, going up to what we spoke of earlier, I really like the fact that I can still get to these areas that I go to frequently. I go on campus a lot, both for work, for my freelance work, and then also there's access to the fields there to play soccer and all that stuff. Nice. And then coming into downtown to go out with friends and all that. And there's great parks, like Willamette Park isn't super far from where I'm at. And yeah, it's very central and accessible by bike as well as car. And the neighborhood is just a nice area as well.
That zone does give you a really good compromise of having some quiet spaces. You're not like right in the middle of downtown, but you've got instant access to everything.
Very easy access.
And you actually answered a question that was on my mind to ask you next as you were saying that, but it's interesting to point out. So you do interact with campus. And the reason why I'm having the thought process I'm having is because I love being in university town, and at this point, I have nothing to do with the university.
Directly.
I used to, directly, right? Like I was actually a courtesy faculty. I even got a bumper sticker once, not really, the bumper sticker, unfortunately. But I love just having the energy and the economic vitality and the arts and culture available to me. But I very rarely go to campus for a specific reason, and you do. So you do interact directly with campus, professionally, but also for sports and stuff you were just talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll actually be there tonight. I'm going to go meet up with some friends and we play spike ball because they have the lights on at the fields till I think it's 10 or 11 p.m. So in the winter, it's actually a great place to recreate, whether it's soccer or anything that involves, they have these turf fields.
Yeah.
And you can just go there and it's ungated access, free. You have to pay for parking, but I bike there. So yeah, you can go there and it's a great winter activity if you're an active person. You want to throw the Frisbee around, kick a ball around. They have basketball courts there, though those aren't lit up. They have tennis courts, those have lights. So if you want to do some outdoor recreation for free, especially in the winter when it gets dark at 4 p.m.,
sure,
it's a great place. I do go there for that. They also put on, there's like provost talks. There's a lot of interesting talks that they bring through, and I go to those quite frequently. And then on the professional side, like I mentioned before, I do video production and photography, and I have a lot of freelance work and clients there shooting graduations and doing video stuff. I find myself on campus quite a bit, actually.
That's really cool. This is a question that I like to ask. It might not be a fair question to ask. You've been here for 9 years, but was there ever a moment where you just thought to yourself, oh, this is home? Was there a turning point ever in that regard for you?
Yeah. I would say one word, no, but I would also say that it was pretty clear early on, probably in those first 2 years, that it was someplace that could become that home. And with every year that passed, it just became more and more. And probably 5 years in, there wasn't a single moment, but it was a place. I reached a point where I said, I definitely would love to stay here. If I can figure out the affordability and job situation, then that's what I want to do. And that's fast forward 4 years from that rough time period. Here I am.
Sure.
And yeah, the roots are a little bit more ingrained.
That's really fun because at this point, you're a solo entrepreneur, right? And you're doing work that technically you could do anywhere. And you're...
To a degree.
To a degree?
Yeah. A lot of my stuff is like in-person production and photography.
You could be a professional, high-level videographer anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you're just having a chapter here. You're like, no, I'm very deliberately here and I'm enjoying it. And obviously, we just helped you buy a piece of land. You're getting settled in, but you really do feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a reason I'm here. There are cheaper places I could choose to live. So there is a reason that I'm willing to figure out how to afford to live here. Not that it's unattainable, but that's a reality, right? It's not the most expensive place in the world, I don't believe, but it's also not the cheapest. But you get what you pay for, essentially. And I think the quality of living here is extremely high. Again, it's tailor-fit to who you are, what you want. But for me, myself, it checks all the boxes, like I said earlier. I love the community. Like, that's almost always the most important thing for me. Every place I've lived throughout my life, and I'm not quite 40 yet, so I haven't lived that long, but that's what makes a place for me, is like that community or the ability to build community.
True.
And Corvallis was so clear from the beginning that had that potential and has fulfilled that potential over the past 9 years. And then you throw in the great environment and all the natural features and everything else that it has to offer, then I wanted to make it work, and so far I have.
I love it. I'm glad you have. There's another question that I have for you along those lines. Sometimes a concern that people have is that if they're not moving here directly for the university, like if they're moving here as young professionals or like young families, that they might have a hard time actually engaging in the community and finding social circles.
Sure.
Now, you just listed 15 different things that you proactively do, including sports, going to campus, seeing talks, all this stuff, biking. You're building community around yourself beautifully right there too. What advice do you have for people so that they can engage in the community and really integrate in, hopefully smoothly?
Sure. That's a great question, and obviously one that's important anywhere you move. But I would say, okay, I'm going to answer it I'm going to combat your multi-questions with multi-answers.
You got this, yeah.
My first answer is, for me personally, I find that a lot of my both hobbies and professional activities really lend themselves to like naturally meeting people and building a sense of community. A lot of the things I do for fun are active things like soccer and mountain biking and stuff. And a lot of those activities involve interacting with other people over and over again in those different realms. And that's how you get to know people. Go back to when we were kids and you see someone at school every day. So it's exposure and repeated exposure. So that, and then my professional world too, networking with other creative professionals, same thing. So for me, that kind of happened naturally and pretty much always has wherever I've lived. I know some people are a little bit more introverted and don't have those things. So what I'd recommend to those type of people is just finding groups. There are lots of meetup groups out here in Corvallis, in the local area.
And when you say meetup, is that specifically like the name of an app, like the Meetup app, or do you mean just in a general sense?
Both. Yeah, I believe there are ones on the app Meetup, and then there also are just community groups. Like I know there's a Mid-Valley biking, which you're probably familiar with. I think you probably featured it on your videos.
We did a bike Vallis, which will have shown up on the screen earlier in the conversation already. But yeah, and that's a good tip actually, come to think of it, to remind people of when you're looking for those social opportunities. If you Google Mid-Valley and then bicycle club, for example.
That'll open up a whole nother door.
Yeah, it's a good way to find. So bike clubs, the social component's not just moving here because you like cycling, but that's a good pro tip right there. Yeah.
Just finding those activities that you like and just looking for the group. Everyone knows how to use the internet and Google now. So just hunt and you'll find it. Also, just going to, like, there's so many cool community things here. There's a great farmers market that goes from, what is it, April through November, or May through November.
Yeah, spring well into what I think of as the fall season.
And then there's a
that's
winter
outside,
market too.
and they take a little break and then they go indoors anyway. Yeah.
And if you go to the farmers market religiously, like some people do, or even semi-religiously, more like me, like you'll just see the same people over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's a small enough town, like I said earlier, where you'll see the same people. The more you get out and engage in the community, whether it's going to the farmers market or going to a talk at OSU, riding your bike around, just going floating on the Willamette River in the summer, you'll see the same people over and over again. And I guess this kind of lends itself more to what Corvallis in the local area is. It's not a huge place, and there is a lot going on within it. So there's a lot of exposure to other people, like an overlap in different areas of your life. I feel like just doing those things and integrating what you already enjoy and trying to find a group is the way to meet other people and build connections.
That's excellent insight. Yeah. Is there anything that you would do differently if you were to move here all over again? I mean, you've been here for a while, so again, might not be a fair question, but.
Sure. I don't think so. It would have been great if I could have been in a position to pull the trigger on buying the land like 6 years ago, but I wasn't. Yeah, no, I can't really think of anything that I would do differently.
That's all good. Is there any other just additional advice or insight that you would want to bestow upon people who are thinking about coming here for a reconnaissance trip, thinking about making the move themselves?
Yeah. First off, make a list of what you want to visit and check out. So when you get here, you don't just get overwhelmed, and then you can actually go do that said list. If you're able to, I would definitely recommend visiting a couple times a year, like different seasons, if possible.
Totally.
Timeline obviously affects that budget and all that, but it's a little bit different place when the students leave in the summer. For better or for worse, that's personal preference, but a lot of the vibrance of the town socially revolves around the university. Traffic's different. If you come here on a game day weekend, that's a pretty skewed impression. That's 8 days a year. Or
if even that many.
Right, yeah. So, maybe being able to spread your time in a couple visits to get a sampling would be an ideal way to do it.
That advice is worth its weight in gold. Do you have a favorite month, for example? If someone only has the ability to visit once, when would you tell them to come?
Man, I'm a fan of the shoulder season, spring and fall. Yeah, maybe May, early May, or somewhere in September, October. Those are the nicest times of year where it's not super gray, it's not super hot, and students are still around, so you get a realistic view of how it is most of the year.
Yeah, and that piece right there that's great advice too, because if someone comes to visit in the summer after the students are gone, town just gets very quiet.
It's different.
It's very different. It's not like it's dead, but there's notably fewer people and fewer cars and stuff like that.
Yeah, if that's your only glimpse into Corvallis, then it's not how it is for whatever 70-80% of the year.
Yeah. And it's not that Corvallis is busy. We joke about having traffic here.
It's all relative.
Yeah, but that wouldn't give you the most accurate impression. And nor would a game day. Yeah. Game day traffic, I'm not a sports person, so I feel funny admitting this sort of thing, but I put football games on my calendar just so that I don't get stuck in traffic. Because otherwise I'm that guy. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll go show this house. Like, I'll see you in 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I'm sitting in football traffic. And I think that's 5 or 6 days a year for most years. It depends if we have the Civil War game, which may or may not even be happening anymore, right? But it's not like this is every weekend all year.
Oh no, it's so infrequent.
It's a handful of days throughout the whole year.
But it is a night and as far as Corvallis is concerned, it's a night and day difference.
Yeah.
I live where I rent now while I'm building the place on the bare lot that I bought. I live very close to the university off of Western, which is basically an artery to the stadium. And there's times I don't realize a game's going on, and I go to leave my place when the game's over, and I'm stuck in traffic for 15 minutes just to get downtown, which is crazy for Corvallis, because that's 4
for
blocks
local
away.
standards.
Yeah, that's 4 blocks away.
Which is hopefully illustrative of just how little traffic we have.
Oh yeah, anytime that's not a game day, traffic isn't a thing.
Yeah. Let's see, one last thing before we let you go, because I think you got a soccer game to get to. You mentioned the farmers markets.
Yes.
I think we have a great food scene here. Do you really enjoy like local restaurants? Are there any specific ones that you want to give a shout out to as, oh my gosh, you got to check out this place?
Man, I am not the person to talk to about local food. I eat at home almost exclusively. I rarely go out. Yeah. so I don't really have any place. I'm a huge fan of Mexican food growing up in California, and though there aren't as many options here, I do like El Machine, which is not that far from the office we're recording this in.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not really a foodie.
That's all good. Do you find, though, being a frequent visitor to the farmers markets, that you still engage in the whole like fresh local produce thing, and that's a facet of the community you really enjoy?
Yeah.
There you go.
I do. And then also, in addition, that you're just reminding me now, there's great berry picking here in the summer. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries. And that's another great event and something to do, not only just for fun to do it, but also you get like incredibly fresh fruit for very affordable prices.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we've got something we can show on the screen there. I think we've got some footage from Corvallis where we talked about one of the blueberry patches. So yeah, that's a good shout out there.
Yeah. Oh, and I want to plug one more thing too.
Go for it.
Community gardens. If you are a gardener and you don't have space, or you aren't able to buy a place that has space for a garden, there's a lot of community garden plots that are around and available. I rented one, or leased one, for a couple years, and super affordable. And yeah, that's another great way to build community and maybe try your hand at green thumb and fail like I did.
Oh no.
Not fail. I don't have it anymore, we'll say that.
All right.
But it was fun. It was a great way I met other people, and everyone in that community garden was great. And it was, a great opportunity to grow local stuff yourself.
It's very lush here, so things do grow pretty well in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Owen, I really appreciate you taking the time again. So folks, again, what we actually do for a living is we help people buy and sell homes, but we're never too busy for you, and we really love just getting to be in touch when you have questions about moving to the area. We're never too busy to just hop on a casual Zoom call. It doesn't have to be about buying a house tomorrow. So we're here for you, and please do subscribe, do all the normal YouTube stuff so that you don't miss the rest of this series and other content we make about living in the area. So Owen, thank you again. Have a great rest of the day.
Yes.
And as we
likewise.
say, bye for now.